the U.S. Latino population, the key engine of the American economy. This report really digs into, well, how vital the Latino community is to the U.S. economy.
It's pretty eye-opening, honestly.
Yeah, I was surprised by a lot of the data. Like, did you know over 83% of farm workers in the U.S. are Latino? Think about that, you know? That's most of the food we eat, right?
It's a massive part of a, what, trillion-dollar industry?
Hmm?
And it really depends on, like, the expertise and hard work of Latino workers.
It makes you wonder what would happen if they weren't there.
That's a good question. It's complex, but, some folks point to history, right? Latinos have been involved in agriculture for generations, going way back.
Right, right.
And others say it's more about, like, economic necessity. These jobs are a way to get started, get a foothold.
Yeah, and we can't forget that a lot of these jobs require really specific skills.
Absolutely. Skills that are often passed down through families, through communities. It's more than just filling a job.
It's a connection to the land, to a way of life.
Exactly. And it's not just agriculture either. Think about construction. Like, almost 30% of those workers are Latino. They're building our cities, our roads, everything. They're contributing, like, billions to the economy.
It's interesting because sometimes you hear this narrative about Latinos taking jobs.
Right, but this report really pushes back on that. These are often jobs that, like, nobody else wants to do. There are labor shortages, and employers are actively looking for Latino workers.
So they're actually filling a critical need.
Exactly.
So we've talked about farming and construction. What other industries have a big Latino workforce?
Well, think about the last time you went on vacation.
Okay.
About 25% of the people working in hospitality and restaurants are Latino.
Oh, wow, that's right.
They're the ones making sure you have a good time,
Yeah.
Often working really long hours, too.
Yeah, you don't always think about it that way.
And then there's landscaping. That's a, what, $129 billion industry?
Wow, a lot of
Yeah.
Latino workers there, too.
Huge percentage.
Yeah.
And it's not just mowing lawns. There's real skill involved.
I'm starting to see a pattern here.
It's easy to take these services for granted.
Yeah, you don't always think about who's doing the work.
Right. And let's not forget retail and all those other, like, everyday services. Latinos are a big part of keeping things running.
So it's clear they're essential workers. But is that the whole story? Is their impact limited to just filling these jobs?
Not even close.
Yeah.
They're also huge in the entrepreneurial world.
This is where it gets interesting. This report cites the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, which says there are over 5 million Latino-owned businesses.
5 million.
Bringing in, get this, over $800 billion a year. That's incredible.
They're not just surviving, they're thriving.
Yeah.
Creating jobs, boosting the economy. It's really impressive.
And they're doing all of this while facing some pretty significant challenges too, right? I mean, you can't ignore the systemic barriers that a lot of minority-owned businesses have to overcome.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to dig into those later.
Okay, good. But for now, let's keep celebrating their success. These businesses aren't just part of the economy. They're shaping markets. They're influencing trends.
Totally.
And what about buying power? The report says Latinos have something like $2.8 trillion in purchasing power.
Wow.
That's a force to be reckoned with.
They're influencing what we eat, what we wear, what technology we use. It's a huge part of how the economy grows.
So we're talking about essential workers, entrepreneurs, consumers. It's a very different picture than some of the things you hear out there.
This report really challenges some of those outdated narratives. It's about recognizing the real contributions of a community that's often overlooked.
I like that. So it's clear how important Latinos are to the economy right now, but what does the future hold? Where do we go from here?
Well, the report argues that the potential is huge, but it will take strategic investment and support to really unlock it.
What kind of support are we talking about? Can you give us some specifics?
Sure. The report outlines a few key areas. For starters, education and skills development. Making sure Latinos have the training they need for even better jobs, more specialized roles.
That makes sense. Investing in education is always a good thing. What else is there?
Well, the report really emphasizes entrepreneurial support. Think resources, funding, mentorship programs, all the things that help small businesses really take off.
So it's not just about individual people, it's about creating a whole system where Latino-owned businesses can thrive.
Right. And then there are inclusive policies, things like immigration reform, making sure everyone has equal opportunities.
So basically removing the barriers that hold people back.
Yeah. The report argues that inclusive policies aren't just fair, they're good for the economy as a whole.
I'm starting to see how investing in the Latino community actually benefits everyone.
Exactly. and the potential returns are enormous.
This is really making me think differently about the forces that shape our economy.
It's easy to miss the bigger picture sometimes.
It is. So what's standing out to you as we go through this report? What's resonating the most?
It's interesting. We're not just talking about numbers here.
Right.
We're talking about real people, families, communities whose hard work is like literally building this country.
It's true. It's easy to get lost in the data and forget that.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important to, push back against those narratives that paint immigrants, especially Latinos, as a problem.
Right.
This report makes it very clear. They're not a burden. They're a huge asset.
It's like we need to completely change the conversation, move away from the fear and the division, and really start appreciating what they bring to the table. But how do we actually do that?
Well, it starts with awareness. Really understanding how much the Latino community impacts our lives every single day.
So like opening our eyes to the stuff we take for granted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. The food we eat, the houses we live in, the services we rely on, so many of them depend on Latino workers.
Okay, so we're aware. What's next? How do we move from awareness to action?
The report talks a lot about conscious consumerism, supporting Latino-owned businesses.
Right, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but is that enough? I mean, it feels like we need bigger changes too, right? Like systemic change.
You're right. It's not just about individual choices, but, those choices do matter. Every dollar we spend is kind of like a vote.
I like that.
By supporting businesses that align with our values, we're sending a message to the market.
So it's a way to align our actions with our beliefs. What about on a bigger scale? Like how can we influence policy, those kinds of things?
The report encourages us to advocate for policies that support Latino communities. Things like immigration reform, affordable housing, healthcare, education.
So using our voices to demand a system that's fair for everyone.
Exactly. Contact your representatives, support organizations that are doing good work, vote for candidates who share your values.
So it's like a multi-pronged approach. Individual actions, but also collective action.
Yeah. And this report really highlights how interconnected it all is.
I'm seeing that. We can't just focus on one part of the economy or one group of people. It's all tied together.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've covered the contributions. We've talked about the need for change. We've even touched on some solutions. But what about the challenges? Like we mentioned earlier that there are barriers that Latino entrepreneurs face. Can you talk more about that?
Sure. The report actually spends a lot of time on that.
What are some of the biggest hurdles?
One of the toughest is access to capital. Latino entrepreneurs often have a hard time getting loans from banks and stuff.
Is that because of discrimination or lack of collateral? What is it?
It's complicated. Sometimes it's credit history or collateral, yeah. But sometimes it's like language barriers or cultural differences in how they approach those institutions.
It's really unfair. So if they can't get funding, how do they even start their businesses?
A lot of them get really creative. They use personal savings. They get loans from family. They do crowdfunding.
Wow, so they're finding ways to make it work.
They are,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't be this hard. And the report acknowledges that.
Okay, so what are the solutions? How do we fix this?
The report talks about the need for targeted programs, grants specifically for minority-owned businesses, microloans, mentorship programs that connect experienced business people with new entrepreneurs.
So giving them the support they need to succeed.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just money, too. It's about creating a system where everyone has a fair shot.
A level playing field.
Right. And again, it's not just about fairness. When we empower Latino entrepreneurs, we're helping the entire economy grow.
I read something the other day, I think it's like, diversity is not just about doing the right thing, it's about good business.
I love that. It's so true. We all benefit when everyone has a chance to thrive.
Okay, so we've talked about the challenges, but I want to focus on the positive for a minute. The report also talks about the incredible potential of Latino entrepreneurship. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, the report's actually very optimistic about the future.
Oh, that's good to hear. What's making them so optimistic?
Well, for one thing, the Latino population is growing really fast.
Yeah.
And as the community grows, the demand for products and services that cater to their needs is going to grow too.
So it's a built-in market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a huge opportunity for Latino entrepreneurs who, really understand that market.
Makes sense. What else is driving this growth?
Technology, the digital economy. Latino entrepreneurs are using technology to start and grow their businesses in amazing ways.
So they're embracing e-commerce, social media, all that stuff.
Oh yeah, big time. It allows them to reach a much wider audience, to compete on a global scale.
It's like the internet has really leveled the playing field for a lot of small businesses.
It really has. And it's empowering a whole new generation of entrepreneurs.
So we've got the growing market, the rise of technology, anything else.
Yeah, I think there's also a growing awareness of the value of diversity and inclusion.
Like, people are starting to see that supporting minority-owned businesses is actually good for everyone.
Right. Consumers are more conscious about where they spend their money. Investors are looking for diverse founders. Even big corporations are prioritizing supplier diversity.
So it's like this positive feedback loop.
Exactly. Awareness leads to action, which leads to success, which leads to more awareness.
And it creates a better economy for everyone.
Exactly.
And this is giving me so much hope for the future. It feels like we're on the verge of something really big.
I agree. The potential is definitely there. We just need to, nurture it, support it.
Well said. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the specific actions we can all take to support Latino businesses and communities. What can we do in our everyday lives?
Well, it starts with, awareness.
So, like being informed,
Mhm.
understanding the history, the context, all of that.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, right?
Yeah.
The more we know, the better choices we can make.
So, where do we go to learn more? Are there any resources you recommend?
Oh, tons. There are great websites, organizations like the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative,
Yeah.
the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce,
Mm-hmm.
the Latino Donor Collaborative, all kinds of groups doing great work.
I'll make sure to include links to all those in the show notes. So, once we've done our homework, what's next? How do we actually put that knowledge into action?
Well, supporting Latino-owned businesses is huge.
Right? We talked about being intentional with our spending.
Yeah, exactly. Make a point of going to Latino-owned restaurants, shops, using their services whenever you can.
Put your money where your mouth is, right?
Exactly. But it's more than just spending money. Tell your friends, tell your family about these businesses.
Spread the word.
Share their posts on social media, write good reviews online, recommend them whenever you get the chance.
Free advertising.
Yeah.
Word of mouth is powerful.
It really is. And don't underestimate, the personal touch. Get to know the owners, hear their stories, find out what makes their businesses unique.
I like that. It's about building relationships, making those connections.
Right. And what about mentorship? We talked about that a little bit earlier, helping aspiring entrepreneurs. If you have any experience, any skills to share, consider mentoring someone. Pass on what you've learned, introduce them to your network.
Pay it forward.
Exactly. And there are organizations that can help connect you with people who need mentoring.
Oh, cool. That's great to know. It seems like there's so many ways to get involved.
There really are.
So, supporting businesses, spreading the word, mentoring. What else?
Well, you can also support the organizations that are working to empower Latino entrepreneurs.
You mean like donating to nonprofits, volunteering, that kind of thing?
Yeah. There are groups that provide microloans, training, legal help, all kinds of resources.
This report has really shown how much we can accomplish when we work together.
It's about collective action, right?
Right.
It's bigger than just what one person can do.
Right.
When we support these organizations, we're helping to create systemic change.
Well said. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think it's this. Investing in the Latino community is not just the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do.
It's a win-win for everyone.
Exactly. When we empower Latinos, we empower America.
That's a great note to end on. Well, I think that's about all the time we have for today.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you learned a lot and that you're inspired to take action.
Every little bit helps.
So go out there, support those businesses, advocate for change, and let's create a better future together. Until next time, keep diving deep.